JoePag.com, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, email, all of that and more right there, plus Newsmax TV. It's the Joe Pag Show. Glad to have you here. Really glad to have this guy back. It's Eduardo Neret. Now, Eduardo, do you have a new title at Campus Reform or not? Because I think you do. You're sort of the man on the street now guy too, right?
I am. I'm Campus Reform's new digital reporter. So Cabot is now our editor-in-chief. I'm taking on some of his former duties of going out to different campuses, interviewing students, getting the current events and the opinions of students on some of our top issues.
And we appreciate the job that you're doing as well. It's at EDUNERET over at Twitter. Make sure you go and follow him right now. Leadership Institute's Campus Reform, you guys do an amazing job. I check out the site every morning. You've got 3 great stories to get to, but I always like to do this. You young folks, you hang out with people who are still in college, although you've graduated now. Congrats. But you know what people your age are thinking about the news of the day. What are you hearing about Iran and what happened in Iraq and our taking out Soleimani? Because the left in Congress would have us believe that we assassinated some world leader when in reality we killed a terrorist. What are students saying?
Sure. Well, I'll give you a little sneak peek, your listeners and your viewers. Over the next few days, Campus Reform is going to be posting a video that I just did at Georgetown University where I ask students to give their reaction to Soleimani's death. And honestly, these students never fail to blow me away. I always think, no, this is the one topic they're not going to go there on. But they definitely did. I don't want to give too much away. But they're responses that will shock your viewers. They're responses that show sympathy for Iran, sympathy for Soleimani. A couple students who said they were devastated to hear that Soleimani died. And these are students on campus. One student told me that this just proves that the U.S.'s foreign policy is based on white supremacy and going after nations that have people of color. I mean, it's just the craziest stuff that you would not believe. So again, I just want to tell your viewers and your listeners to look out for that because that's going to be coming out real soon. Interesting insight to what students are thinking and reacting to Soleimani's death.
I'll make sure I promote it when it comes out. What's interesting is the people who are the students' ages that you just spoke with, but they live in Iran, they went and protested. They cheered in the streets. They were happy to see Soleimani dead. In fact, many of them were killed in the streets. 1,500 or so protesters who just wanted freedom and liberty and wanted to get away from the grasp and the restraints put on them by the Ayatollahs and by the mullahs and by people like Soleimani. They're very happy that he's dead. People here of the same age aren't. Isn't that nuts? That's nuts to me.
It's disappointing and it's insane. I mean, you talk about anti-American hatred. That exists around the globe, but we also have an anti-American hatred that comes from within that we, sadly, our professors, these universities are teaching our students. And that's something that we try to do at the Leadership Institute's Campus Reform. We try to shed some light on these professors. And what they're teaching their students is to hate America, to side with other countries over us, and in some cases, to show sympathy for terrorists. It's astounding.
It is Eduardo Neret. Go follow him at EDUNERET over on Twitter. Does a great job. He's the new media guy, the new digital reporter over at campusreform.org. Along those same lines, we know why these students feel as they feel when they talk to people like you, because they've got college administrators and they've got people who are professors and so on, who are actually taking Iran's side. You've got a story here where an administrator has been suspended because of this, right?
Yeah, so he put out on his Facebook, this was a professor at Babson, he put a comment on his Facebook saying he hopes the Ayatollah puts out a list of cultural sites in America that he's going to target. So this was in response to Trump tweeting, hey, if Iran responds to us, we're going to go after some of their cultural sites. And the professor put this out. Look, we have to give props to Babson. They suspended the professor without pay. Yeah. He wants to come back and say, oh, it was a joke. Some of the cultural sites he listed were the Mall of the America and the Kardashians. But his apology was also pretty insulting, too, because he said, I was trying to juxtapose Iranian cultural sites of these old historical mosques, these ancient buildings, with some of our cultural equivalents like the Kardashian house and the Mall of the America. America has cultural sites, too. And so to draw that equivalence, again, you see the sympathy for Iran and you see the anti-American hatred. But again, good on Babson for suspending this professor.
What's interesting is George Lopez, who used to be funny, he's not anymore, but he's also said something like, I think there was an $80 million bounty put on Trump's head by the Iranian leaders, and Lopez said, we'll do it for half that. And he's getting a visit by the Secret Service. He's getting a visit because that's a real threat against the president. You had some former football player the other day put out a picture pointing at the White House saying, this is the United States of America if you want to take somebody out, Iran. I mean, you're a young, happening guy. Are you as surprised as I am that people in this country, enjoying their freedoms and liberties, enjoying what people in Iran can never dream of, are so filled with hate towards that president, our established government, and our way of life. I mean, I'm stunned. Are you stunned, or are you used to it now?
Sadly, exactly. I was going to say I'm used to it. I'm numb to it. As you know, from the very first day of this presidency, when Madonna was out there, during the inauguration saying it's time to blow up the White House, people all across this country have just thrown decency, thrown decorum out the door. And you know what I would say to these people? If that's what you think of America, if that's what you think of our president, that instead of maybe organizing against him in the next election and just using your democratic power to have your voice heard, if you're calling for violence, if you're calling for these disgusting acts against our president, maybe you should go to another country if you hate the United States of America so much. If America is such a bad place, there are plenty of places around the world where, as you pointed out, they won't have these freedoms to say these things. So they should be careful what they wish for.
Well, Cardi B is going to go to Nigeria now. That's interesting to me, because she's going to last about a day in Nigeria before she realizes that is one of the worst countries as far as culture, as far as freedom, as far as, I mean, there are people in poverty constantly, and they also, I guess you can get a job scamming people, because Nigeria does a lot of those scams that you'll find in your email box too. That's nuts to me, but I actually hope she does it. I want her to become a Nigerian citizen, go there, and then really beg forgiveness to America when she realizes the freedoms that she's giving up.
They haven't got a clue. They haven't got a clue.
They really don't. Go follow him at EduNeret over on Twitter. He does a great job for campusreform.org. Student support, student loan debt forgiveness, but don't ask me to pay for it. I mean, what is this about? Is this your video that you did?
Yeah, this is my most recent video. Your listeners and your viewers can go check it out. So with all the Democratic candidates promising free school, debt forgiveness, I wanted to go out and see what students really think. And of course, they want to take this virtue signaling position. They want to sound nice and say, yeah, I'm for student loan forgiveness. I want to eliminate debt. And then, a lot of the students I talked to, they didn't actually have debt. So I said, okay, you want to forgive your peers' debt? Would you be willing to increase your own tuition to pay for your friend's debt, your peers' debt on this campus? And a lot of them said, actually, no, I don't want to raise my tuition to pay for my friend's debt. If I work for my money, I want to keep it. But to their credit, they sort of realized their own hypocrisy. And a lot of them told me after, they were going to think about these issues. And that's what I try to do at Campus Reform. I think a lot of time people want to take on issues, take positions on issues because they sound nice. And it's only upon realizing how it would affect them individually that maybe they start to think a little bit more and say these ideas aren't realistic.
It's a great video, great questions, and people need to go check it out at campusreform.org. I know Cabot did a video last year where he talked about socialism, and they were all for socialism until he said, okay, so you have an A and I have an F. Socialism pretty much is, let's make both of us have a C, and then we can just continue. And they said, well, hell no, I worked for that A. Right. I worked for what I have. You're going to work for what you have when you get into the public workforce, and giving up a lot more of what it is that you're earning to go help somebody who's not trying as hard, it really did open their eyes. Do you find, and I talked to Cabot about this a lot too, but do you find when you talk to these people, they are open to be educated, they are open to hear the information, and they're open to changing their thought process? They're not like, lost causes.
There's some that are, but you're right. For the most part, many are open-minded, and that's the silver lining about the state of education in America. Yes, it tilts left. Yes, there are left-wing professors and administrators on these campuses trying to influence the next generation. But the good thing is that they have an open mind. They have a lot of information at their fingertips, with the internet now, with Google. So just pointing out some of these mere facts to them, getting them to think, a lot of them walk away from these interviews and they're like, I didn't think of that. I'll go check that out. And that's very encouraging for us, again, for the next generation. And that should be a note to your viewers and listeners. Look, if they have, young students in their family, kind of kids that I like to joke and say maybe being led astray, being led towards the left, talk to them, because most of them are open-minded. Most of them will give your ideas a chance.
Eduardo Neret, he's the digital reporter. Is that what we're calling it?
Yes, digital reporter, yeah.
Perfect. Go check out his videos, campusreform.org. Go there every day like I do, at EduNeret over on Twitter. Do me a favor, give him a follow. He does great stuff over on Twitter as well. Talking about professors, this whole Covington Catholic teenager, this guy Sandman, Nicholas Sandman, he did nothing wrong. He actually kept the peace. He was attacked. He stayed cool. He stayed calm. He was the face of white supremacy and MAGA and everything wrong with America until we saw the unedited tape, and then we realized that he was the adult in the room, basically, in that situation. He just won a huge settlement from a media, what was it? Was it CNN?
CNN.
So he gets it from CNN. Still lawsuits on the Washington Post and NBC. He's still got lawsuits against everybody because they wronged him. Well, these professors I thought were supposed to be the smartest people going, and they're really not. There's some professor now saying that he wanted to harm the guy, right?
Yeah, so Reza Aslan, he's actually a former CNN contributor. He's a professor now in California. He had put out a tweet at the time that said, doesn't this kid, Nick Sandman, have the most punchable face ever? Well, now we saw a couple months ago, Nick Sandmann, is going to sue not only him, but other professors who have made similar comments to, the ones that CNN made, this slander against him. And now what's interesting, what we just updated in our piece is that this professor deleted his tweet just as the lawsuit's coming. And so people are pointing that out on Twitter, and this professor saying, no, me deleting the tweet has nothing to do with the lawsuit. And it tells me—
Then why did he do it? Did he say why he did it then?
He didn't say why he. Oh, he did say why he did it. He said his wife told him to. But again, in light of CNN's settlement, it's a clear message that people are going to they're not going to be let off the hook for what they say.
Yeah, right.
There's going to be justice that comes out of it. And I think a lot of these people who made comments about Nick Sandmann and the Covington kids, they're scared. So now they're trying to go back and cover their tracks. But the good thing is screenshots last forever. So
once you put it on the internet, it's always on the internet, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
So this guy, actually, I'm familiar with him. I think that I argued with him on Twitter probably 3 or 4 years ago. Everything he tweets is just completely hate-filled. He's anti-American values. He's anti-how we got here. He's a guy that always finds the intersectional person affected and why the white Christian guy somehow harmed them. So I don't put it past him to have posted something like his face is punchable. But to delete it is just about an admission that what he did was wrong and now he's scared. And the idea that he's saying his wife made him do it, what a cop-out. So when you see this thing unfold, being a journalist yourself, seeing how badly these outlets covered this story, does it give you sort of rise to what you guys do at Campus Reform? Because I think that you do an amazing job. Every bit of information you guys have given me for the years now that we've done this has been spot on. You've never had to retract anything. You've never had to go back over your reporting and take the slant out because there wasn't one. Does it give you a little bit of hope that they're being held accountable? Maybe, just maybe, journalism isn't dead?
I think them being held accountable will certainly teach people a lesson. It will open the eyes of maybe other journalists across the country to maybe be a little more careful. And like you said, deleting his tweet, not only deleting it, but deleting it a year later.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with putting out a tweet or maybe giving out an opinion before all the facts are out and being wrong. And as long as you come out after and say, hey, I made a mistake, I'm issuing a correction, which a lot of times people do on Twitter.
Right.
What's unfortunate is these corrections don't get the same traffic that the original comments made.
Right.
And in Riza's case, this professor's case, he never issued a retraction. He never issued a correction. And to delete it a year later as if none of us saw it, it's pretty insulting to our own intelligence, too. We saw what he tweeted. America saw what the media said about Nick Sandmann and these Covington kids. And my hope is that they get justice. My hope is that the mainstream media is put on alert to what real news is and what fake news is.
He's the digital reporter over at campusreform.org. It's Eduardo Neret. Follow him at EDU, N-E-R-E-T. And Eduardo, you do a great job. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joe. Thanks for having me.
All right, brother.